Heartbreak and football heartbreak this week. It's a sort of a double heartbreak, especially for those of you who remember when the Washington Redskins were Baltimore's football team, those 13 years we had here. But lo and behold, every 8 years they come to Baltimore one way or another, and now we must wait 8 more years, unless they meet in the Super Bowl somewhere down the line, to defeat the Washington Redskins in Baltimore. A 16-10 loss. Luke Jones is here. There is plenty of meat on the bone, as I like to say, in this one. And, offense, defense, special teams. Where to begin here, Luke, other than this was a tough loss, and that locker room was kind of ugly Sunday after the game.
As it should have been, because that's a brutal loss. You cannot lose to a team like the Washington Redskins at home on the heels of having lost a home game the week before and expect to do anything. And look, they're 3-2. The season's not over. There's plenty of time to make corrections, but this is not a football team trending in the right direction. We talked the first few weeks about the offense looking really good at times, but not being able to put things together. Well, they're going backward. They had a fantastic first quarter, to their credit, opening drive touchdown. So, that kind of, you check that off the list as far as things you hadn't seen.
It looked like they were going to score 31, right? Literally, right in the beginning. It looked like, this is going to be, a couple of field goals, couple of touchdowns. They'll take the ball away. Tucker will hit some kick that's crazy in the wind, and they'll score 30 points today. Unless the Redskins are going to score 27, how are they going to win, right?
Yeah, it looked that way, and then it very, very quickly went away. Look back at those first couple drives. They, on their opening drive, they converted 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2. And there's the importance of staying on schedule. Why were they able to stay on schedule? They ran the football very, very effectively. Terrence West, huge in that first quarter. Absolutely gashed them. And it very rapidly went downhill after that first drive. And, it's just a number of things went wrong. One, they stopped running the ball. They ran 11 times for 74 yards in the first quarter. They ran 8 times after that, including Joe Flacco's scramble on 4th down in the fourth quarter. So they had 7 designed runs, or at least 7 runs that they planned to execute at the time they snapped the ball. That's unacceptable. You can't be gashing a team like that and then completely go away from it. And I know Harbaugh and Mark Trestman and any football coach will try to give you you got to look at the situation, you got to look at baloney. You're not producing anything with your passing game. Joe Flacco has thrown 98 times over the last 2 weeks for a whopping total of 508 yards. That's 5.2 yards per attempt. So either your passing game is completely broken, or you're abandoning the run and you're not trying to run the ball, and you're not trying to, in the case on Sunday, enhance what was an obvious strength early in the game. So, either of those things, that's a big problem. So, that's just the offense. Certainly, the defense played very, very, very well in the first half, despite the special teams, which has been a total mess the last 2 weeks, and the offense putting them in some tough positions. Kirk Cousins got going as the game went on, and certainly coverage had some lapses as it went on, but at the same time, they gave up 16 points. That should be good enough to win, especially when 6 of those points came on a punt return for a touchdown. So, it's just, you're asking your defense to do a whole lot, but it really comes back to an offense that was completely inept after the opening drive. Special teams that have been a mess now 2 weeks in a row, and we haven't even gotten to it, but some really lousy coaching decisions. And, whether we're talking about Mark Trestman with this impossibility of sticking with the running game for whatever the reason, and, like I said, they'll throw different things out there. I know Harbaugh said in the post game that they didn't abandon the run. Well, the numbers are the numbers. So, getting kind of tired, kind of a tired act to continue hearing that if you're a fan of this football team. And I understand that. Frankly, it's a tired act from hearing it from a media standpoint, because, we're asking the questions and they're saying the same things, yet nothing changes. So you have that. And then, a decision that, as I joked to you in the press box, that, Buck Showalter happy with the decision, quite frankly, to try a fake field goal and have your kicker throw a pass in windy conditions as opposed to taking a short field goal. It boggles my mind. I don't know how.
Yeah, when Buck Showalter's decision to leave Ubaldo Jimenez and have Zach Brenton end the season on the bench is only the second worst decision of the week, then you've done something, right?
Well, I still think I might go Buck ahead of that. But the fact that we're talking about it in the same breath shows how bad that was. And look, I asked Justin Tucker about it after the game. It's a play that he says they practiced for 5 years. I tried not to insult his athleticism, but at the same time, this is not a quarterback. And you're asking him to throw a pass in that situation, which is risky enough. And it was very clear that the wind was a major factor. In fact, a couple minutes after that happened, there was a member of the Ravens staff whose hat blew off and flew halfway across the football field. That just shows what kind of wind you're dealing with. And you're going to ask your kicker to, instead of kicking a short field goal that, even with the wind, probably is a gimme, you're going to have to ask him to throw a pass. I mean, I'm at a loss for words over that. I still am. You know, I don't care what John Harbaugh says about being aggressive. That is not a smart football play there. And they lost by 6 points. If you put a field goal on the board there, as bad as the offense was throughout the day, they got down close enough where even with the wind being a factor, you still had to like your chances with Justin Tucker hitting a game-tying field goal there instead of having to throw on fourth down to Mike Wallace incomplete. So,
yeah, overtime would have been a blessing at that point, right? I mean, we're praying
absolutely.
for overtime when it's 16-10, and you can see that everything about the team, from special teams to the defense. I mean, even on the pick with Mosley, it's not like the defense got pushed around. They gave up 16 points, for crying out loud. They took the ball away. They got to the 1 foot line from winning the game. If C.J. Mosley has 2 hands on the ball, they win the game 17-16, right? I mean, that's the crazy part, is that they've now lost the game by a point, and they've lost the game by 6 points that was eminently winnable. I mean, they could easily be 5-0, except for a few decisions, a few executions. But hey, that's the NFL, right? I was talking with Eric Weddle about that in the locker room. That's the league.
We talked about that all last year, about a 5-11 football team. You know, all but 2 of their losses were by 1 possession. So that can't be an excuse. And I'm not saying you're using that as the excuse, because you could also make the argument they're a few plays away from being 0-5. I mean, think about it.
Sure.
You know, that's how close those first 3 games were. So, it just, and look, you've known me covering this team long enough. I'm not the type that is just going to sit there and point the finger at coaches, because I think that's lazy. I think it's very convenient to do that.
Everybody needs to get fired every week. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, that said...
That grates on me,
That said, there does need to be accountability here, because, Mark Trestman got a pass last year, I think rightfully so, because you didn't know who was playing quarterback, wide receiver. They had injuries everywhere. I get that. Totally fair. That's why I was not someone saying that, I wonder about what kind of job this guy really did. Because it was impossible to tell. But we're 5 weeks into this thing. You can't keep using the excuse that Steve Smith wasn't on the field in the summer and Brashad Perriman wasn't on the field in the summer, and Joe Flacco's coming back from the all these pieces for the most part are here. And look, I understand Steve Smith leaves the game in the first quarter. Why can't your other receivers get any separation?
They could not get to the sticks, right? I mean, with him off the field, your 3rd and 8 feels like 3rd and 28, right? Literally.
Yeah, but that's the problem. I mean, and look, I love Steve Smith. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we've talked about how amazing it's been to see him come back, but your offense shouldn't go in the toilet when he leaves the field with a sprained ankle. I mean, that's a problem. So I think a lot of it, players have to be accountable. There's no doubt about that. There are plays to be made on the field that weren't made. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, I am going to look at this coaching staff and kind of say, what the heck's going on? We continue to talk about the same idea, even the last 2 weeks, with the running game. Last week, it wasn't until the 3rd quarter that they got it going, even though Terrence West had a pretty nice run earlier in the first half, and then they completely abandoned it. This week, Terrence West absolutely gashed that Washington defense. And, oh, by the way, we haven't even mentioned, that's a terrible Washington defense statistically. They were 29th in total defense. They were 26th in points allowed. They were 30th in run defense. So, you got exactly what you wanted in terms of the running game in the first quarter, and then that went bye-bye. I just, that's why, again, this isn't me saying to just go and fire everyone. That's not it at all. But at the same time, I've said this, I've said this at a couple different points. We talked about this in the preseason. I don't think this team is talented enough to overcome coaching gaffes, and they've had coaching gaffes the last couple of weeks from John Harbaugh and from the whole body of work with Mark Trestman. And, as much as I respect Jerry Rossberg, his special teams units aren't getting it done right now. And Harbaugh alluded to that. That I get it that they have some veteran special teams guys like Albert McClellan, like Zach Orr, that are playing on defense now. But that can't mean that your units completely fall apart. I mean, as much as we talked about the fake field goal play, team gave up an 85-yard punt return. You lost by 6 points. They got 6 points right there. So, I mean, it's just across the board, you kind of ask, what the heck is going on? And, as much as, we talked about the fact that the first 3 weeks, 3-0 is 3-0, and you can't control who you're playing, and who cares that they were 1-8 over the first 3 weeks, those 3 opponents they faced. Well, you're not seeing progress here. You're, in some ways you're seeing some regression, and, the injuries certainly have not helped. So it's just, there are a lot of things to be concerned about with this football team right now. 3-2, they're still in decent position, although now you have back-to-back road games before you go into the bye. I said to you all along, I think for this team, looking at the schedule that they have in the second half of the season, I thought it was very, very important for them to get to 5-2 going into their bye week. It's still possible mathematically, but going to have to win back-to-back road games to do it. And based on how they played the last couple weeks, it's hard to like their chances to go on the road when they lost to Oakland. That's fine. I think the Raiders are a pretty good football team. And we'll see how good as the year plays out. But I did not find this Washington team to be all that impressive at all. But they came into Baltimore and beat the Ravens. First win for the Redskins in Baltimore since 1955, believe it or not.
Yeah, I caught that stat on the way out, and it feels like they've kicked our ass in ball. You know what I mean? Like, from my heart, it feels like this is the first time in my lifetime that the Washington Redskins have won a game in Baltimore, yet I carry such angst with them, right? And part of the angst, and look, we'll talk offense, defense, and special teams. I find it, and I'm going to write about this week, and people aren't going to like what I have to say. Is Baltimore dead as a sports town? I mean, is it in decline where the Orioles can't draw people, and the Ravens? Not only was the stadium full of Redskins fans, it was full of empty seats too. I thought it was just it's been a bizarre month for sports here. Have we zenithed out on Ravens and Orioles mania where less people care, less people want to spend money, less people... I mean, the weather was beautiful. I mean, it's windy, okay, fine, but it was a fall football day amongst two teams with some hope. The NFL should be worried. Sports should be worried when places like Baltimore have that many empty seats when, quite frankly, the two local teams are playing. It was just a head-scratcher all the way around. The whole week has been. I mean, the Nationals are having trouble selling their playoff tickets. Their playoff tickets were $15 on Sunday morning.
I agree with you. And look, I've made this argument many times. It's not my place. I'm in the press box. It's my livelihood, but it's not my place to tell someone else how to spend their money. At the same time, you do kind of shrug your shoulders and say, well, okay, we talked about the many reasons with the Orioles and, well documented the history and season tickets, all that, but it is very curious on the heels of talking about what the Orioles attendance looked like that we're now seeing the same thing with the Ravens, not in terms of tickets sold. I mean, I know they announced 71,000 or whatever it is, but in seats, it was very clear there were a lot of empty seats. Now,
those seats are sold. That means people don't even want to come, man. Those tickets are sold.
Here's some food for thought, and this is on the heels of seeing what was in many people's minds a pretty alarming, I don't want to say takeover, but a very large presence of Raiders fans last week. Might this have been a case of some of those empty seats where perhaps, and again, this is just off the top of my head, perhaps some Washington fans who had a Nationals playoff game makeup, and maybe they had tickets for this one, and maybe they just went unused because they decided they chose playoff baseball. Either way, it absolutely is. It's a head scratcher because the Orioles won 89 games this year, and the Ravens, despite the fact that they were 5-11 last year, they were off to a 3-0 start, and they're still a team that should have a whole lot of credit build up over the years, a whole lot of equity build up over the years, specifically in the John Harbaugh era, and only being 4 years removed from a Super Bowl title. It's absolutely something to scratch your head about. There's no doubt. And it's funny you mentioned about the NFL. I mean, it's been talked about. Television ratings are down. It's very, very interesting. And
Well, has the bubble burst? I mean, the bubble burst on the real estate. The bubble burst on Donald Trump this week. I mean, the bubble burst on everything. You know, at some point, I mean, remember the Redskins when they played at RFK? They had that waiting list that was 20 years long. Then they spent 10 years with empty seats in their 80,000-seat stadium in Ral John while Danny screwed up. I mean, you know, everything comes to an end. I mean, it felt like to me when you were a kid and the Orioles were packing them in the 90s, like it felt like it was forever, you know, that we were always going to be able to buy the best players. And now that, you know, we've been 2 decades and can't pee a drop, and, you know, they're winning and no one's coming to the games. This is an alarming thing, especially for a guy like me that's invested my whole life in this. This is my 25th year sitting here talking about sports every day for a living. To see less people investing themselves in the strategy and knowing the players. You know, I went through a tailgate and I actually talked about the scratches in the parking lot at my tailgate where someone said to me, hey, Chris Moore's scratched. I mean, what's up with Correa? You know, like asking those kinds of questions. I don't hear that sort of intelligent banter so much at Ravens games anymore, and I've noticed that a larger breed of the older 50-plus set has started to just, like, not come to the games anymore. You know, like the people that were in the seats when they won in 2001 aren't the same people in the seats anymore. It's changed. It really has. And that's natural, but it's changed.
Yeah, and part of that's going to happen. There's going to be some natural, just like I mean, God rest his soul, my dad's not around anymore.
Sure.
You're going to have that. You're going to have people who get older and decide they're not going to come to games and everything. But it is interesting. It's interesting, troubling, startling, however you want to put it. Look, I don't want to label any fans or question anyone's intelligence or tell them how to spend their money, but it is very, very interesting to see that, and certainly I don't think that's necessarily what most Ravens fans want to dwell on right now.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. But it was it was a jump the shark kind of week here, and the locker room. The whole experience of it, it's almost inconceivable. I mean, on the pink day and all the empty seats and the Redskins are there, and they were kind of like, there were a lot of them, but they weren't particularly loud, and they won, and they won in such a way that this is going to be a bad week in Owings Mills, right? I mean, in preparation for this Giants and this Jets, by the way, we have a few seats left on our Giants bus. If you do want to go to New Jersey this weekend, toss me a note. We'll make room. But so let's start with the offense, and then we'll go defense and special teams. And I know that, again, there's a lot of meat on the bone. Is Trestman in trouble to your mind? I mean, we've talked about that privately with some other reporters after the game, that with 2 weeks left and with this offense being perplexing. I don't know that they're poor at anything. I don't know that they try to run, and there must be some consideration for the offensive line, which is not the This is the offensive line you would have wanted to see in the second quarter of the first preseason game, quite frankly, with Ryan Mallett quarterbacking.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and the offensive line is a big part of it. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, the seat should be warm for Mark Trestman at this point. I mean, this team made some additions. Certainly they brought in Mike Wallace. Rashad Perriman is healthy. Dennis Pitta is healthy. So, that alone right there shows that the talent has been upgraded at the skill position. Now, you can question if it's been upgraded enough. That's very fair. But I'm not seeing improvement here. And look, they ran the ball really well the last 2 weeks, but they also played really bad run defenses, and they were playing at home. And, they still didn't take advantage of that in the case of Sunday's game against Washington. So, look, I'm not the guy to say, hey, fire the coach, fire the coordinator. But at the same time, the results are the results. And this team came into the week tied for 19th in total offense. They were 19th in third down offense. They did not convert a single third down after the first quarter. I mean, that's completely unacceptable. And, again, you can keep feeding me the excuses about the running game. Well, if that's the case, then your passing game is completely broken. So the seats should be warm. And, whether that means you're saying you're putting them on notice and maybe if things don't turn around here over the next 2 weeks, maybe you consider it at the bye. I'm very much the guy that always says, okay, well, if you're going to fire your coordinator, who's going to be the replacement? Is it Marty Morningwig?
Well, you would also say like that is a sign of incredible, like, red flag. In the But they fired Cam Cameron in Week 13 and won the Super Bowl 8 weeks later. So I can't think. I mean, Brian Billick fired Jim Fossil, and things turned around pretty quickly when that happened. I mean, things do happen when you make those kinds of moves. I just can't imagine what that meeting looks like at 6 a.m. on Monday morning, where Harbaugh comes into Trestman, and I'm sure it begins after the game, saying, we ran the ball and we stopped running the ball. And why did we stop running the ball? And why are we and then the question is, why are we having Justin Tucker throw passes into the wind? I mean, there's a lot of questions to be asked here, none of which John Harbaugh really wants to hear right now, quite frankly.
Sure. And again, I'm not even saying it's all on Mark Trestman either. As we pointed out, players didn't make plays, questionable coaching decisions, the fake. I don't care what John Harbaugh says about being aggressive. That was a bad call. You cannot call that when you're dealing with wind that has clearly impacted the game. I mean, there's no doubt about it that it did. And I'm not saying that these quarterbacks couldn't throw the ball at all, but it clearly had an impact. Washington tried to. I had to chuckle at the end of the first half when they tried a 56-yard field goal when both teams decided to pass on shorter attempts earlier in the half. I mean, it's just.
They ran a draw on 3rd and 9 after calling a timeout, Luke. I mean, I don't know in the history of the league how the owner sits in the box and sees that and says, what the hell happened down there? Like, there were some really glaring. Look, John Harbaugh's coached how many games here? 16 times 8 plus 5, right? So you do the math, 100 and some games. Yeah. There haven't been a whole lot of weeks we sat around here and saying, he's been out-coached or outsmarted himself, or, you go back to the Belichick mess up in New England a couple years ago with the trickery and the chicanery and all that. I mean, that's not Harbaugh's gig, but on a straight, like Buck Showalter earlier, on a straight X's and O's as far as how games have been run, it's very hard to argue with John Harbaugh, but if you came in from the moon and watched that game on Sunday and didn't know who the coach was, you'd be asking, who's the coach here? What's going on here?
Yeah. No, there's no doubt. I mean, last week in taking the penalty instead of the field goal, I mean, there was certainly some debate in that, but that was something that as I thought about it more and more, I didn't agree with, and certainly, I mean, to me, there's no justifying having your kicker try to throw a pass on a fake. I don't care if you have been
on a windy day,
for 5 years.
On a windy day. In a game is going to be a 3-point game, kind of, sort of,
correct.
Right?
I mean, if that's in a dome or something like that, I still don't like it, but I can at least say, all right, fine. No. I mean, it's just foolish. And look, I have a great respect for John Harbaugh. I think he's a hell of a coach. That was a foolish decision right there. I mean, I can't agree with that one iota.
Well, maybe his dad and his brother wouldn't agree with it either. Luke Jones and I discussing all things Ravens in the very disappointing loss, and it's going to be a long, long week around here. And, of course, the Orioles out of the tournament. We're monitoring all things baseball as well. You can find Luke, Baltimore Luke, on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. We're going to have plenty more to say here on the offense, on Flacco, on the running game, on the O-line, and the shuttling through. We will have C.J. Mosley joining us on Tuesday night at Buffalo Wild Wings in Owings Mills. We'll be at the best seat in the house on Monday night, as we always are in our wing eating competition at halftime. So, Buffalo Wild Wings and Owings Mills are home on Monday night for football and on Tuesday night for C.J. Mosley and for swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. We're going to talk about Brashad Perryman and the touchdown that wasn't, and various drops and Steve Smith's injury and Terrence West running the football and Terrell Suggs getting to the quarterback but not setting the edge. And boy, oh boy, the secondary, the pass rush, and the special teams, and Jerry Rosberg and Mark Trestman. Whoo! A lot of meat on the bone here. Stay with us. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live as well as on our YouTube WNSTV channel. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST text service. If you're on it, you got the injuries, you got the reports during the game, and heard about Steve Smith, amongst others. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home, getting you ready for Thursday night football this week as well. Morning newspaper reaches your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. And last last but never least, around the world we go in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault. So anything you miss here, radio-wise, video-wise, news-wise, you get it first in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault. You can also listen live from anywhere in the world. We're more than just a little AM radio station. It's all brought to you by buyatoyota.com. You can download that TuneIn radio app, and we do come in live, local, late breaking, and from wherever you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. A little bit of room on our bus for the Giants this week. If you do want to go north up to MetLife Stadium with us, we'd love to have you along. We never stop talking Baltimore sports.